Welcome everybody, this is Jeff for the 5th Twilight Imperium tutorial video. This one is not going to have any graphics actually, I mean you have something to look at. But in this one I want to address a pretty basic question. We're getting close to a game, or you're watching this to prepare for a game. It's always good to ask, what faction will I play? Sometimes, in about half the games we've played, we've randomly assigned factions. And if you have players with about equal experience and skill level, and a new expansion didn't just come out, that's pretty fun. Everybody sucks equally, basically. But if it's your first game, there is a lot of merit to preparing, aka reading a little bit about the faction you're going to play, to not forget what the heck you're going to do. I mean, I forget all the time. I forgot our last game, so... and I've played before, so this definitely happens. So this video is going to be decently short. I'm just going to go through all the factions in alphabetical order and give you just a basic breakdown of what they do. Not too much strategy. If you think one sounds cool, ask me about it, and I'll try to give you more detail. But at the most basic, I'm going to tell you what it's good at. I'm going to give you their complexity. This is from the publisher. Their complexity ranking, what they considered hard, why I think they would think that way. And then why you may or may not pick a faction to play. But before I start, if you ask me, Jeff, how would you pick? The two best ways are either the moves sound cool, right? It sounds like a fun thing, you can actually understand it, right? And it sounds like something you'd like to try to do. Or the theme sounds awesome. Either of those are great ways to pick. Because if you're into, I don't know, being space birds, be the space birds. Who cares if they're good? And if you're into it, you'll figure it out. And the more you can get into the theme, actually, probably the better you'll play that faction. And the better you'll learn it. But we'll go through, I'll explain the super basics. This document you can get from their website as well, or just pause the video. Alright, we're just going to go in alphabetical order. We're going to work our way through. Now, I've not seen all of these in game. I've read them all, and I've read some strategy guides and listened to them. So I don't have 100% experience with all of them, but I'll give you the basic rundown, and I will be referring to the TI4 factions sheet. It'll have all the faction data in detail, not just this random data. And I'm not going to read it all, but as relevant, I will reference it. So all right, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start at the very beginning. The Arborec. And I'll tell you if it's an old or new faction, by the way. Old faction, they're in the base game. Considered difficult by the devs. Actually, I should zoom in a little bit. There we go. Nice. So they're considered hard by the dev, complexity 3. Why? Well, basically, your infantry produce. What does that mean? It means your infantry are production 1 base. They're called Litania Warriors, and they become production 2 on an upgrade. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. Production just means, the amount of production means at the end of any activation you get a build. Great! So basically, your infantry produce, and your space docks can't produce infantry. So this means, now what does this mean practically speaking? Everywhere you activate, so you get a little chit and you activate. When you activate, at the end of every movement that involves infantry, you get a build, which is super cool. So almost every activation you are building. And there's a tech called Saar tools, the first yellow tech, and you get a build, 1 discount to every build action you do. That means Arborec, hypothetically, with 1 tech upgrade, and by the way, they do not start with it, but with 1 tech upgrade, they're basically building for free on every activation, which is pretty cool. So your infantry produce, so once they get started, they can be quite good. And you also get 1 free game infantry. That's not very good, I'm not going to lie. Their leaders, I'm not going to get too much into the leaders, but generally speaking, if something is notable, I will point it out. Everybody has at least 3 leaders, right? But for now, they're the growing faction. Let's talk about their faction tech, though. Basically, their infantry get better. That's nice. And as it says here, you can move your infantry between planets. Now, if one consideration you should think about as a new player is, how can you tell if the faction's quote-unquote good? Complexity makes them harder. Generally speaking, too, you want to see, do they have the method to move to invade 2 systems at the beginning? If they do not, I would consider that a difficult start for a new player. So, for example, they only have 1 carrier. So that means you have to build another carrier to expand twice. That makes them not very good, and generally speaking, 2 techs is better than 1 for a new player, and they only have 1 tech. So they're not that easy. And I agree with the complexity rating. I've played them once. I like them as a faction. but I don't know if they're very good. All right, next one. New faction, Argent Flight. And remember that tech, the tech explanation I just gave you? They get to choose 2 out of 3 tech. Very good, by the way. I'd almost always get Sarween and Neural Motivator. Sarween is the one discount to every build. Neural means you get 2 action cards, which are your secret moves. And remember I talked about, can they move at the beginning with 2 invasions? Well, if you first look at this, and you go 1 carrier, that's it, that's crap. Well, not really. Their special unit is a destroyer with capacity 1. Every destroyer they have can move troops. Now, why does this matter? They have a carrier and 2 destroyers. That means they can invade 3 systems round 1. Very good. So that alone, that makes them great. They get voting shenanigans. There is a political phase in this game, and they get to do voting shenanigans. It's fun. Their anti-fighter barrage, which is what destroyers have, can damage other ships, which is great. Normally only damages fighters. So their destroyers, which are their special ship, get even better. And then they can transport units with those destroyers. Very nice. They have a lot of movement shenanigans. Like, for example, their mechs don't weigh anything. That's pretty good. So, and I didn't talk about this faction's mech. Basically, their mech helps them. They can build mechs when they use their faction ability. Isn't that nice? But besides that, not that great. But these guys' mechs just move for free. They don't cost transport capacity. That's pretty nice. What's their other faction tech? Oh, yeah, if they have any building in any system, you can't travel through their systems. That's pretty good, too. And if you want to read more, right, yeah, all of the stuff is summarized here. But yeah, starting with 2 techs, 3 moving ships, a complexity rating of 1. They're pretty solid. I would say mostly you could say they focus on movement shenanigans and being able to move a lot of infantry in their fleets and good destroyers. So again, maybe not a bad faction for a new player. All right, next one. Oh yeah, the Volwraith Cabal. Who are these guys? Why are they next? They must be doing it by seas. Let me get it down here. Okay, we actually played against the Cabal in our last game. What is the Cabal good at? Well, they're very complex. Why? Short version, and they only have 1 tech and only 1 carrier. But remember we talked about if you have at least 2 ships that can move stuff, Dreadnoughts have capacity 1. So that's pretty good. They're fine with that. They only have 1 tech, not that best. But why complexity? Well, they can do a couple things. Basically, when they blow up ships, they eat them. They capture them. And they can use those to build for free and research for free. They have a pretty interesting agent, as it says here, converts a player's commodities but captures one of their units. You basically give the other person trade goods. Whenever they get commodities, which is the thing you can trade, the Cabal guy can eat one person's ship, commodities, turn them into traded goods for the player that he's eating, and then gets a free ship. That's pretty cool. And they also get to produce more infantry and fighters above capacity. Pretty good. So, and they have really interesting space docks that let them move fast. Lots of shenanigans. How do you counter them if you're fighting them? Basically, if you blockade their docks, you get your ships back, and they can't steal more of your ships. Not the worst, but it is a complex faction. Interesting. All right. Man, what is this order? It's not alphabetical. It's just random. Embers. I have another list I'm going on here. Let's see. Embers are the Death Star guys. War Sun. Now, they are very complex because they just have a complete... Their faction tech is Special War Suns. But the cool part is they get Death Stars. And they have some production shenanigans with their Death Stars. Their upgraded ones are very good. They're 3-move Death Stars, basically. And I say Death Stars because they shoot planets really well. They have really good attacks. But they only have 1 of them. So they can be a bit rough. Now, to solve the problem of they only have 1 moving ship, their agent actually lets them do a free build. So you can produce extra units with your War Sun right away and then go invade. It could be worse. They're complex and not considered a great faction, but can be fun if you want to blow the universe up. So that's pretty cool. All right. Imperium. Oh, by the way, I didn't say Cabal is new, Embers are old. Empyrean. These guys are explorers. Let me get their side sheet. I have it here. Yeah, all right. And basically, by the way, every faction generally has 1 thing they're very good at. Okay, Steam, just stop flashing. So what are these guys good at? Well, Dark Energy Tap is the new tech that lets you explore frontiers, when frontier tokens are just tokens in empty space that don't have planets. So these guys are the explore empty space guys. They also move through nebula, which normally slow other people's ships down. You can negotiate to let other people's ship move through your ships, which is cool. They have special promissory notes and extra ones. Again, that's fun. And so they can get command tokens for exploring. Again, pretty great. Once a turn, but still good. So, yeah, they're not bad. They're the exploring faction. You can force people to give you promissory notes, which is fun. And they're not that complex. And they do have 2 carriers and 4 infantry. So pretty good exploring introduction. Like, they can take 2 planets, pretty good. They only have 1 tech, but it's a good tech. And they're not very complex. Again, might be fun for a new player if you like exploring stuff. Next one, Ghosts of Krios. They're an old faction. But I've seen them in games 2 or 3 times. They're good. What do they do special? They can go through all wormholes. They can fly all over the map. When you move in certain wormholes, you move faster. And your home system's a wormhole. They're the super wormhole faction. And then their agent lets them connect to most other wormholes. So they have the most annoying movement stuff. It's great. Lots of wormhole shenanigans. They can even steal a system and move it to a different... They can, like, swap systems in the game, which is pretty hilarious. And remember, it says here that contain wormholes or your units. That's what the agent says, or your units. So you could flip systems. Now again, they only have 1 tech, but it is the let them move even faster tech. So they are just a super fast faction. They only have 1 carrier at the start, so they can only take 1 system without building on warfare, which isn't great. So they got to work on that for sure. So that they could be a little more complex. Still a fun faction. Not the easiest for a new player, but interesting. All right, now we got to scroll back down to our next set. Oh man, the headliner, the Emirates of Khan. These guys are pretty easy. They are the trade faction. Yay! Now they have 2 techs. Remember I told you 2 techs is pretty good. And they're an old faction. They're one of the oldest, I think. They have 2 carriers for infantry, so they can explain to 2 planets. Not bad. They have 6 trade goods, which they're quite good at. Basically, you can replenish your commodities quite easily as them. You can play the secondary of trade quite easily. You can trade with everyone who's not your neighbor. You're the only one that can trade faction cards. And with your mech, you can trade planets. If you think trade sounds cool with other players, the Emirates are your faction. Pretty solid. Yeah, just the trade faction. They're considered not very difficult. I would say the rules aren't complex, but the difficulty of being Emirates is totally depending on your table. How much people want to trade with you. But you can trade with everyone. So I guess if you have a trade-like personality and think you can make people work with you, Emirates can be fun. Okay, so another old faction, the Universities of Jolnar. These guys are the research faction. You remember I said starting with tech is good? They start with 4 tech. They also start with 2 carriers, but only 2 infantry. Boo. But still, they can, and Dreadnought. So they have 3 expansion possibility, but they'd have to somehow build more infantry round 1. But they suck at fighting. They're -1 at fighting. They're really bad. But you research tech at lower cost. What does that mean? You can play the secondary of tech for free. Whenever, or more correctly, whenever you play the secondary, you play it like the primary. So whenever you research, you can research for free, even if somebody else is playing tech, which is great. And you ignore prereqs on unit tech, on non-unit upgrade tech. So you can jump around the tech tree super easy. You're also able to sacrifice infantry to do research. It's one of their new abilities. It's pretty great. Now, more interestingly, you can give away tech. You can give your promissory note, and then, so somebody's attacking you, hey, don't attack me, want free tech? You just give them your promissory note, and the next tech you research, they also get it. Quite interesting. And it might seem like their -1 at fighting is bad. It's not bad. Because you get so many techs, all your ships will be tech 2 really quick, so it makes up for you're not very good at fighting. I haven't seen it matter that much. So if you really want to learn the research of the game, this faction's good. They are not that complex, and you do get to research a lot. They're quite good. I don't think the expansions made them worse. All right. Let's do Lizix and Barony. Now, if you watch any of my other videos, you've already seen these. But Lizics are basically the old kings of the universe, except now they're undead. And they're not very complex. Why? These are the Dreadnought faction. They have special Dreadnoughts. That's their claim to fame. And they're quite good. I'm pretty sure right away let me double check. They're capacity 2 Dreadnoughts. So they start with a Dreadnought and a carrier. 5 infantry. So they can go take 2 systems right away. As we said, good. They have 2 tech. As we also said, good. What's special about them? What's their special ability from the old game that they keep? They get to bombard all the time. So normally when you invade a planet, you get a bombard with your Dreadnoughts once. The Lizics get to continually bombard every round of infantry combat. So they can take ground very easily. They also steal structures when they invade, once they win, which is quite nice. And once they get their commander, which they just got to have 4 Dreadnoughts, and they want to have Dreadnoughts, they ignore planetary shields, which is for there's basically orbital defense guns. They just ignore them, and they can shoot ground units. It's really good. So if you think battleships sound cool, Battleship faction. They're pretty cool. Very, very simple. I don't think they're complex. It's very easy to know what you're good at. You just got to do it. Now, Barony, if you watch my other videos, you kind of know about Barony. Now, Barony have the same advantage that the Lizics had. They have a carrier and Dreadnought, so they can expand to 2 systems. Good. They have 3 infantry that can go. Great. Their ability is fleets. Their fleet limit's increased by 2, which is great. They can roll an extra dice once a round in combat. Doesn't sound that good, but it's quite good if you're shooting with Dreadnoughts. They have tech. Their tech lets them get better at sustained damage. And then, when they use sustained damage, they get paid trade goods. So for them, mechs and Dreadnoughts are their great unit. And then they have a really cool hero. All the heroes, I haven't mentioned all of them, but you should look at all the heroes for the factions. Their hero lets them ignore fleet capacity for an entire game round. So they could have like 25 units in one system and just crush. It's pretty cool. They're fun. They're more of a general faction compared to the Lizics, I think. They can do multiple strategies. They could do battleships, but they could do mechs. They could do other things. A fun faction. I think they're also not very complex and quite good. If you notice home systems, they have 6 resources. 5's pretty good. 6 is better. So they're pretty rich faction starting off, which is fun if you're new. All right. New faction, Mac Gene Sorcerers. These guys, if I was going to tell you what they do, we had them in our game. We played a test game. Well, they have 2 techs, and they're 2 new techs, which is good. Who doesn't want 2? And remember, these both also had 2, which was quite good. Their whole shenanigans, and they have 2 transports. They have a Dreadnought and a carrier, also good. They are complex, but why? They basically have command token shenanigans. They can steal command tokens. They can steal your command tokens and use them. They can't make alliances, basically. But when they die, when your infantry die, you get paid. And when you fight people and win, you place people's command tokens into your fleet pool. And then once you do that, you actually can start stealing their command abilities. So, and here we go. It's called Imperia. When another player's command token is in your fleet pool, you can use the ability of that player's commander if it's unlocked. So you could have like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 people's command tokens, and then using their commanders and your commanders. Really freaking good. This one requires you, though, why is it complex? You have to remember everybody else's commander ability. It's not that easy. It's great. And then they get pretty cool techs, right? You can mess with people's voting, and your infantry can just come back when they die. Pretty amazing. You can also force people to fight each other with your leaders. Silly. So they have a lot of token shenanigans. Most importantly, you can spend other players' tokens instead of your own. So you can. It's also like a kind of warfare where you can give another person actions. Very powerful, as it says, Mad Kings. They're powerful, but they're a little complicated. But a lot of fun shenanigans if you're in the mood for that kind of thing. Mentak, old faction. Space pirates. They have a hard start. Remember I mentioned you need movement. They only have 1 carrier. So they have to find a way to get another carrier. They have 2 tech, again, which is great. Basically, when they fight, when you trade, they can steal from you. I think it's if you have 3 or more trade goods and do any transaction or gain trade goods, they get one of your trade goods. Whew. Their cruisers and destroyers ambush, which just means shoot first. Again, quite good. You can also steal promissory notes now when you win a combat. Very nice. And eventually your trade goods are worth double. It's one of your attacks. Very good pirate faction. Very complicated. Very fun. Yeah, they're good. I mean, so far every faction I've played is fun. But space pirates. Who doesn't like space pirates? All right, now we scroll down to the next one. Oh, man, Naalu. Oh, man. I've never actually seen Naalu played, but they seem very fun theoretically. Naalu, 2 techs, good. A carrier, which is not good. They have less expansion until you build. But what's good about them? They always have initiative 0. They always act first, which is very nice. They have really annoying fighters. Most specifically because once you upgrade your fleet token to 3 green tech, every time someone attacks you, they lose a fleet token. Not fun. You have a lot of agenda shenanigans, which for a new player, I don't think you care that much about. But you can retreat whenever somebody attacks you for 1 strategy token. Again, very nice. But overall, a little bit complicated. I'd say 2 is fair. But if you wanted to try fighters out, they could be very fun. But slightly complicated. I probably wouldn't recommend them first game. But they're cool. All right, another new faction, the Naaz-Rokhas. These are, by the way, Naalu old, Naaz-Rokha's new. They have 2 techs as well, and 2 carriers. Good start. These are planet explorers. That's what they do. They have kind of planet explorer shenanigans, but they also are a mech faction. They actually have 2... Their mechs do 2 things special. First, their mechs have 2 shots. Nobody else's mechs have 2 shots. And then, as this here, transform into a ship. You have a ground combat version and a ship version. So when you're a ship version, you suck more at hitting, and you don't have sustained damage, but it's a ship, which is really good. But I think it flips back and forth. Let's see. If this unit in the space area of your active system is also a ship. So when you're in space combat, it just flips into a ship, and when you're going in ground invasions, it's a ground unit. So they have cool mechs, and they get to explore planets. Not bad, and a decent start, not very complex. If you want to mess around with mechs and exploring planets, they're probably pretty cool. Yeah, all right. Next one. Old faction, Necrovirus. They're the Borg, or the replicators from SG-1. Very complex, because they basically play the game totally different. And they also have a harder expansion, but they do have a dreadnought and a cruiser, but they only have 2 infantry. Boo. So they need to find a way to build infantry to expand. They cannot research, they cannot vote, and they can't research tech. But they get lots of command tokens instead of researching and voting, and they steal tech from everyone else. Remember that faction we had that basically eats people? This faction eats other people's tech. In any space combat where you blow up at least 1 ship, you get a tech from that person. So the Necrovirus just eat tech from other people, which, if that sounds fun, cool. Are they complicated? Yes. I'm not sure I'd recommend it for a new player, but they are exciting. They only start with 1 tech, too. But, again, they can steal faction tech as well, which is hilarious. Although, I was reading the Q&As, they can only steal Tech 2 faction tech, I'm pretty sure. Not Tech 1. Interesting. All right. Nomad, or new faction. What do the Nomad do interesting? 3 agents, my goodness. So they have 3 agents. So if you really just, man, I wanted to learn more about agents. They have 3 agents. That's it. They only have 1 tech, but it's a new tech. It's a tech that lets you build just by flipping the card. It's Tech 2. It's not bad. Their flagship's free, I think. Let me see here. Yeah, if you score 1 secret objective, this is their commander, you produce your flagship without spending resources. So they start with their flagship, which has capacity, and they have a carrier. Very nice. And then their flagship is free, and their flagship does some funky stuff. You may treat this unit as it were adjacent to systems that contain 1 or more of your mechs. So if you put your mechs, you build a couple mechs and put them around, suddenly you can move from your mechs to your flagship and your flagship to your mechs. Again, pretty cool shenanigans. Yeah. And your mechs, I think, produce sustained damage in space combat. Again, cool. So you can have some pretty cool movement shenanigans with these guys as well. So, There you go. And I think they have the only, as it says here, the only flagship that can get upgraded Tech 2. So they have a Tech 2 flagship. Very nice. So if you wanted to try them, new faction, they don't seem bad to me, and not that complicated. All right, Clan of Saar. Here we go. Clan of Saar, Space Nomads. Only one tech, not great. 2 carriers, good. Medium complex, why? Well, they don't need their home system to score, unlike everybody else. And their space docks can move with their fleets, which, again, pretty cool. And every time they take a planet, they get a trade good, and I think their mech lets them... They build mechs with one trade good when they conquer a planet. So every time you conquer a planet, you can build a mech. Not bad. All right. Medium complex. Next one, the Sardakk Nor. These guys have the easiest faction ability in the game. +1. +1 to all attack rolls. But no starting tech. Boo. They are very simple for that, but they're difficult for kind of, I guess, winning. But besides that, I think they're pretty easy. They place free infantry. Their infantry can invade all kinds of shenanigans. They do have 2 carriers and 5 infantry, a good start. And they can get 2 free infantry almost right away. So you have 7 infantry, 2 carriers. Pretty good. And your dreadnoughts have extra bombardment dice, and your upgraded dreadnoughts, which is your faction tech, they do like a double hit kamikaze strike, which you can sacrifice a dreadnought to blow up any 2 enemy ships. I think it is just kill. I don't think it even says hit. After a round of space combat, you may destroy this unit to destroy up to 2 enemy ships. It does not say hit. It says destroy. So you can destroy those Death Stars. You can destroy carriers. You can destroy battleships like the Dreadnoughts, or any ship you want. So they have pretty cool kamikaze ships. Those are pretty fun. They're a hard faction to play. I mean, they're probably hard to win with, but they're probably pretty simple to play, if you ask my opinion. All right, I think we got 1 more sheet, maybe 2. All right, Federation of Soul. Humans, space humans. What's their thing? Lots of infantry. Now they have 2 techs, as we said, a good start. 2 carriers, 5 infantry. Great start. They can drop reinforcements on planets they control. They get an extra game token each round. They have good infantry, good carriers. They're probably pretty good at fighters, too. Yeah. So they're a very good ground infantry faction. Pretty basic. Titans. They're old, by the way. New faction, Titans. Medium complex. When they have 2 tech and 2 cruisers and a dreadnought. Remember we talked about that 3 expansion? They have the 3 expansion potential. Quite good. Their PDS spawn. Their guns are like their special unit. They spawn on their planets after they explore them, and then they can also spawn into their flagship. That's cool. They can also terraform their home planet, and they can trade away terraforming to another player as well to make their home planet like a super planet. It's really cool. Their cruisers have capacity immediately, so they have a 1, 2, 3. They don't have a carrier, if you notice, right? But they have dreadnought and 2 cruisers, so each one can go to a different system with their 3 infantry. So they have pretty sweet cruisers as well. They're fun, yeah. They're a good new faction, I think. Yeah, medium complex. All right. The Winnu, oh man, the poor Winnu. I shouldn't say that. But, okay, the Winnu, no, they get to pick 1 starting tech. Oh, cool, they have 1 of 2, not bad. They have 1 carrier, kind of bad. 2 infantry, kind of bad. Their whole game is about taking the center, Mechatol Rex. They can take it for free, and when they take it, they get to put a gun and a space dock on it. And once they take it, they get +2 in their home fighting, in their home system, any legendary planet, and Mechatol Rex. Pretty sweet. And I think they're mechs, too. When their mechs invade, they can get a free PDS or space dock. Again, not bad. Now, why are they complex? They basically only have 1 rule. Like, they only take the middle planet, and if they don't do that, they lose. That's it. Kind of rough. Although their hero's pretty cool. They can play a strategy card primary once a game, regardless if it's been played or not. And they can let their friends do it, too. Cool. X-Cha. These are they can diplo a planet. They only have 1 tech. But they have 2 and only 1 carrier for infantry, so they need to build another carrier somewhere. Their orbital guns are quite good. Their cap ship is just a giant orbital gun. It has a space cannon ×3, and it can shoot in adjacent systems, which is disgusting. But they can they have a lot of agenda shenanigans. They can quash any agenda they don't like for 1 strategy token. They get a vote more than everybody else. And then, I'll be right there, Joe. My son's calling me. And they get an annex free planets with diplomacy. So, free expansion, which is pretty cool. Which does actually mitigate their only 1 carrier. In the first round, they could actually get 2 systems by just using 1 strategy token. So, that's pretty cool. I think we're on our last 2. Yin Brotherhood. These guys are actual religious zealots and kamikazes. What does that mean? They have a cool ability called Indoctrinate. Whenever you fight on the ground, as we learned last game, you spend 2 influence, the blue resource, this one. You can turn an enemy troop into your troop. And for 1 more, you can make that guy a mech. It's pretty good. And then their ships have a thing called Devotion. After a round of space combat, you may destroy 1 cruiser or destroyer, and then you can hit any one of the opponent's ships you like. Very good. So they can, and then they have a cap ship that can explode and destroy everything in the system. It's great. So they're fun. They're very simple, but very fun at ground combat and space combat. They steal your ground troops and smash their ships into yours in space. It's nice, straightforward, fun. Oh, and they have 2 carriers and 4 infantry. So good starting expansion. Finally, the Yssaril tribes, they're really easy. They are the action card faction. How much so? Well, they were always pretty good. They have 2 carriers, 5 infantry, 1 tech, not bad. You can discard an action card to stall, and best, every time you stall, you get a mech. Great. You get extra action cards with no hand limit, which is great. And then you get to steal everybody else's agent. That's your agent. You can use anybody's agent you want. You can see, whenever somebody attacks you, you get to see secret data on them. And then you can steal cards from people with your tech. So there are a lot of action card shenanigans. So if you want to do that, they're your faction. All right, folks, that's the simple basics of all the factions. Hopefully that helps you pick. If you want my opinion more, I gave it a little bit. But if you want more of my opinion, or like the how-tos, or have one that sounds more interesting, just reach out. I'm happy to help. Besides that, yeah. See y'all soon. Bye-bye now.